All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Julia Swenson. I'm the director of the cultivation practice at Flower Hire. We recruit for cultivation positions across the country. And welcome to Cannabis Clips. These are short interviews with cultivation leaders across the country. And today our guest is Travis Higginbotham, VP of Cultivation at StateHouse in California. Hey, Travis.
Hey, Julia. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for joining us today. So Travis, just to kick off here, tell us a little bit about your cannabis journey so far. How did you get into the industry and what are you doing now?
Yeah, sure. No, it's been a wild ride. I formerly trained in horticulture, bachelor's and master's in greenhouse kind of ornamental production mainly. Started off doing that in my career, working with some large growers out on the East Coast, working with companies like Lowe's and others making decisions on plants to launch nationwide. But no, kind of how I got into cannabis was I ended up doing a lot of research in regard to photoperiodic, supplemental, and sole source lighting, and get my foot in the door working with Fluence, and built them out kind of a global technical support team. And that's when I was kind of thrown into the mix of cannabis all over the world. That was interesting, fun. It was in Australia, Scandinavia, Europe, Canada, US. I think we even were consulting in an underground bunker in Germany at one point. And so it was wild. Learned a lot. And yeah, it's been really fun kind of taking what I learned in ornamentals and bringing it into cannabis. And then kind of evolving ever since. So outside of that, though, worked at the hemp mine out of the Southeast with Allison Justice. Had a great time out there with them. And then also have a small consulting LLC, due diligence horticulture. But today I run cultivation for StateHouse. We have about 230,000 square feet of greenhouse between two facilities, Salinas and Greenfield. And I've been here for about 2.5 years now, and enjoying the ride in California.
Awesome. And I mean, work across the country and across the globe also. I mean, you've seen a lot in your career, Travis. You're a bit of a unicorn out there, I would say. But wanted to ask you, I mean, I know that StateHouse has been a four-way merger in California recently, of Harborside, Loudpack, Urban Leaf, and Sublime. Tell me a little bit about, what it's been like running production for a four-way merger in California.
Yeah, no, I think any merger is challenging, especially in cannabis, where the market itself is already challenging in the first place. But I'm quite surprised with how well StateHouse has identified its leaders and how those leaders have come together in every facet of production. For those who don't know, StateHouse is considered the largest, I believe, single state operator in California. We have about 16 retail stores, and I believe we touch about 600 wholesale accounts in the state. And yeah, every gram of flower we produce goes into almost every single packaged brand that we supply and distribute. And so no merger is simple, no merger is easy, and especially a four-way merger. But it's been fun, and I'm confident in the path forward. And yeah, the market even seems to be kind of showing some upside right now as well. So.
Yeah, exciting to see things swinging upward again. And then how many different strains are you growing this year with StateHouse? Can you tell us a little bit more about the current operations?
Yeah, sure. So we have multiple brands, and so that's quite the puzzle for cultivation, to make sure we have the appropriate species ratio, cultivar rotation, batch size per each of these, per brand and per product type. Our system's built on a perpetual schedule, so we plant and harvest anywhere between 15 to 18,000 plants a week. And I probably this year will rotate through about 35 cultivars. But we've just recently built out kind of a breeder partner program, of 4 main breeders. And we now have a cadence of receiving new genetics on a biweekly basis that go through a trialing program, get evaluated. And if they succeed in the evaluation, we just pump it into production. And so we could potentially go through as many as 50 cultivars in 1 year.
Wow, that's fantastic. So for you, Travis, why cannabis? What intrigued you about, and I know you talked about Fluence and making your kind of entrance into cannabis through Fluence, but what brought you in really, and what kept you here?
Yeah, I'm fascinated with still what we don't know about this plant. And in the past, growing ornamentals, you grew for a retail accepted aesthetic spec. And in cannabis, you're not only growing for, the quality and the aesthetic appeal at retail, you're growing for yield. And growing a crop for yield is a little bit different than growing floricultural crops. And so I was willing to take that on and see if I think I know what I do know about plants, let's put it to the test. And so I'm enjoying learning every day on how to master both yield and quality. Because especially in such a challenging market in California right now, you got to do both, and you got to do it cost effective. And so, yeah, what we don't know about cannabis and what we're learning every day about it keeps me enthralled with it.
Got it. Yield and quality. That's the two big things, huh? What is today, what would you say is the most interesting part of your job at StateHouse?
Oh, interesting. I guess just market dynamics in general, like Caleb, I'll admit, and I don't come with a background of being a cannabis user. I come with just loving the plant, loving to grow plants and the science of growing. And so being in California, kind of the premier location in the United States for cannabis, it has this culture that's part of the industry. And it's been interesting. It's been fascinating for me to try and connect with the culture while at the same time appreciating, quantifiable metrics, real data, accuracy, science, and just trying to speak both languages so that we can start to merge these two things, which I think is the only way this industry is really going to mature and offer new opportunities for everybody. And so it's been interesting for me to try and bridge that gap, so to say, I guess.
Yeah, well, we've seen that as a huge theme in the cultivation practice in terms of recruiting. The talent pool for cultivation is so diverse, right? There's folks starting in traditional agriculture. There are folks that, have been kind of in the legacy market for decades, and then kind of like early risers coming right out of school, having studied horticulture. There's so many different people in the mix. And I think, I can imagine your job kind of blending it all together is really important. And finding space for all of those different personalities is, I think that's the winning kind of piece, right?
Yeah, no, I tell my team the hardest thing we'll ever do is work with other people. It's not growing plants. And it's the hardest thing we'll ever do and the best thing we'll ever do. And so, yeah, to your point, that's exactly right.
Yeah, there's so many people out there with amazing, knowledge and expertise. It's just bringing everyone together. So in your experience, what are the keys to companies being successful in cannabis?
Being honest, staying true to their mission. I think in cannabis, it's challenging with how volatile the market is. Right. And in some cases, it's very difficult to predict kind of what the season ahead may look like. And, just as we've seen here recently in the past 12 to 18 months, we've had prices on flower go from $1,000 a pound for mixed light down to $400 to $500. Now they're back up to $900. And within all of that mix, we've had, at least in Salinas, 1.8 million square feet go out of business in the past 12 months. And then you throw on top of that the weather here in California for all of Q1. I think we looked at our Priva data last, and ambient light levels have been reduced by 40% compared to last year, and that'll directly impact yields. And so right. I think it's a lot of it is based on the team, a lot of it's based on the expertise, the understanding of how all of these things can happen and influence production. And then at the same time, just, people determine everything within companies. And so, I think, you really have to focus on who you hire and care about it in order to be able to weather this market.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think other states are definitely seeing similar issues to California in terms of price compression and, you know, cost of flower going down. But you know, it's interesting to see how companies are working through these challenges. And I definitely agree. It comes back to the people every time.
It does.
And what do you specifically look for in terms of people? What do you look for when you're hiring for your team?
So there's a quote by Jim Rohn, and it's always stuck with me. And he said, you hire good, you don't train good. And, you know, you can kind of break that out in many different ways, but, you know, I try to hire based on character, try to hire based on expertise. You know, it's my job to enable our team and our employees to do the job they were hired to do. And so when you seek out a new employee, you've got to make sure that, for one, you're clear at what you're going to assign them to be responsible for, and make sure that they do have the expertise to do it. And if they don't, you need to have the confidence of being able to coach them to get there. But as long as the character and the attitude is willing, then let's figure this out together, you know. And so, yeah, it's a lot about the person, a lot about honesty and integrity. That matters a lot to me.
And those things are much harder to teach. So,
Yes.
Great. And so, I guess from a cultivation perspective, what is the low-hanging fruit that you feel like can be improved, that could have a positive impact on the growth of the industry at large?
So there's an acronym here that we throw out there, and it's QSS, and this stands for quality, species, and strain. I think there's a quality, species, and strain dilemma in the industry. And what I mean by that is, you know, the end consumer goes to a retail dispensary and they buy based on species and based on the experience they have from buying based on species. Species is completely inaccurate when we classify cannabis. And so automatically we're somewhat hindered in bringing more value to the customer because we're throwing them into these buckets of species, right? And then strain is a term taxonomically that's associated with microorganisms. It has nothing to do with plants. And so we're not even classifying and referring to things correctly, which limit our ability to improve what we're offering to our customer. And then at the same time, quality. Quality in many cases is termed dank or fire, or these things that are not quantifiable, right? You know, you can't manage what you don't measure. And if it's our job to ensure quality, I need to be able to measure things that are quantifiable and therefore can be translated to the customer. We don't talk about moisture content and its association with the product burning. We don't talk about water activity and its association with microbial susceptibility and shelf life.
Right.
You know,
we talk about THC percentage, right?
Yeah. And I will say there are multiple brands out there, including StateHouse, who are putting a focus on dominant terpenes, which is a way to get us away from the species discussion. But I think the lowest hanging fruit is to really focus on those three key areas, educate the end consumer, and allow us to start educating them in a way that brings more value in the decisions they make on their purchases. I think that's going to be a critical thing that California is going to have to address to move forward.
I like it. It's a little different than I've heard so far, and I think yeah, I mean, it's huge. Consumer education, so, you know, and changing the way that people are thinking about their buying habits, you know, makes a lot of sense.
Well, and you think about, you know, genetics, new genetics that are offered to the market. You know, eventually breeders are going to start breeding for specific traits, and they're going to start, you know, truly, you know, breeding for specific quality attributes and specific profiles, and therefore customers. And right now we don't even have the platform to properly offer them a lot of what could be offered to them into the future because of how false we're classifying everything. So yeah, I think we're going to have to be honest at some point and educate to a decent level of science so that we can use a plant and classify its offering appropriately.
Absolutely. And then speaking of kind of moving the industry forward, what new technologies are you most interested in right now when it comes to growing?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. I have the background in lighting, and when we talk about crop performance, lighting is critical, as this is the energy that the plant absorbs and converts it into glucose and therefore biomass. And I don't know if many quite understand the foundations of photosynthesis and why they should be hyper focused on lighting. But traditionally, lighting has been designed from above, right? And it's been designed on a simple two-dimensional plane above the canopy in what we call ppfd, or micromoles per meter squared per second. And there's a lot of legacy practices that go on where they're lollipopping plants or they're defoliating plants completely. And I'm starting to realize that there is some validation for some flower direct approaches with lighting and other environmental influences. Instead of, let's say, applying light from above, possibly having light being applied directly to the flowers beneath the canopy can help us increase yields. And so, there's a lot coming out on inner canopy lighting. And I think possibly the cannabis industry needs to consider changing how we think about optimizing yield from a two-dimensional plane of light intensity from above to a three-dimensional cube around the crop. And I'm thrilled about it. And we're trialing some things in partnership with the CRC and some other groups to see if by utilizing light in this way, we can possibly use the same amount of energy, but have better photon capture, increase premium to small ratio, and possibly increase yield at the same time, and kind of change the game per square foot. Because our objective as producers of a crop is not the same as Mother Nature. So we may need to think about how we apply light just a little bit differently. So to answer your question, I think there's something to inner canopy lighting.
Interesting. I'll continue. I'll follow up with you on that. That's really interesting. I want to hear how things end up going with the trials.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. So just wanted to take a few minutes and talk a little bit more about you, Travis. When you look back on, your career so far in ornamentals and cannabis, just in agriculture, since the beginning, what accomplishments are you most proud of in your career?
I'm proud of the companies I've decided to work with, right? I think, if you're not careful, you always, when you're looking for a new opportunity, there's multiple opportunities that you can take advantage of. And I'm proud of making the decisions I have with those who I've worked with. So it's been Battlefield Farms in Virginia, Fluence, the hemp mine, and now Harborside. I've grown in every single one of those jobs. And I think we've been able to do productive things at every single one. And so, yeah, I think that's been an accomplishment I'm proud of. And then as far as StateHouse goes, I am very proud of the culture that we have within our cultivation unit. Obviously the company as a whole, but I have control over the unit. And so I like what we've done as a team: accountability, integrity, continuous improvement. It makes it so much fun while productive at the same time.
Fantastic. And then the last question I just wanted to ask today, for folks listening out there might be, cultivation leaders across the country, people that want to get into cultivation. What would be your biggest piece of advice for someone trying to either enter, cannabis cultivation, or grow their career within the industry?
Rely on the science, rely on validated data, right, to guide you to make decisions. Don't believe claims until you've seen it for your own eyes and trialed it yourself. Question everything you know, otherwise we're not doing our job. And be willing to sit at a round table and humbly be part of a team.
I think that's all lots of great pieces of advice. I'm sure other cultivation leaders could probably resonate with the same pieces of advice you just said. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Travis, for taking the time today. Incredible insights on the industry, incredible career journey so far. It's just great to have you here. So thank you. And stay tuned for more interviews here. If you're looking for cultivation talent or looking for a cultivation job, feel free to reach out to us at Flower Hire. Our email is cultivation@flowerhire.com. And I'm sure if you're looking to find Travis, LinkedIn, is that the best way to find you?
Sure. Yep, that'll work.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Travis. Have a great day.
Yeah, thank you.